Eregän resided in King Vladimir's castle from that day on for a year. Although she initially didn't know what waiting for her, she wasn't afraid. Any challenge was possible. Knights brought her out for the dungeon and bring her before the king, who was waiting for her in his office. Eregän stood her ground, showing no fear. The king, impressed by her spirit, said to her, "I heard rumors about you, half-blood." "Eregän," she interrupted. The soldiers beat her legs until she fell into her knees. The king asked her what she had said, and she replied, "My name is Eregän Dracarys." The king, still surprised, continued, "As I was saying, I heard rumors about you, Eregän, that you are wild and untamable, that many of your masters return you to the slave market. I bought you because I want you to become our royal pet. You will help the maids, but more importantly, you will be the guardian of my wife and children all the time, because your life belongs to me now. Is that clear to you, Eregän Dracarys?" She simply nodded, and the king ordered her to be taken to the queen and the prince. When Eregän arrived before the queen and the prince, they assumed a serious expression in front of the knights and ordered them to leave them alone. The knights obeyed without objection. Once alone, Eregän expected some punishment, but to her surprise, instead of a blow or lashes, she received a hug from both princes. They even apologized to her for any possible cruelty from the king or the knights. Eregän assured them that she was fine and that she was used to it. The queen and the prince were pleased to see that, despite the circumstances, she remained strong. They disliked the idea of acquiring a half-blood slave, believing that, although they were different, they were still living beings. This got Eregän's attention, and she noticed that the queen and the prince didn't seem like the king, so she decided to ask them, "I'm sorry if this is a bit sudden, but why did you tell the king about me and buy me if you didn't want a half-blood slave?" The queen replied, "You see, when you saved us at the market, we saw how you were treated. It didn't seem fair to us. We always knew the people's idea about half-bloods. People are cruel. I never want that kind of treatment for those beings just because they are different. Sometimes I don't ask my husband to get us a half-blood slave because it would cost us more grief and pain. But when you saved us the other day, I knew we couldn't just leave you there. So I convinced my husband to buy you. Of course, we had to tell him what happened, but for that very reason, I asked him to buy you because I thought that way you wouldn't be in the slave market anymore." Eregän didn't know what to say. She could only thank them for their help. The queen and the prince were delighted and then introduced themselves. The queen's name was Elfie. The oldest princess introduced herself as Heroine, and the youngest prince said his name was Eregän. After they introduced, it was Eregän's turn. "It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Eregän Dracarys, but you may just call me Eregän, your highnesses." The queen and the prince were surprised by her kindness and politeness. Prince Eregän asked Eregän if she could play with him, and she agreed. They played for a while the princess and the queen relaxed. Everything was peaceful until Eregän heard someone approaching. Recognizing the king's footsteps, quickly she picked up a stick and hit her head so hard that she got a wound. Queen Elfie and the prince were shocked by her act, but before they couldn't ask her if she was okay, the king entered the room and saw Eregän on the floor. He just smiled and said, "What pathetic silly beast. I don't know why she did, but she deserved it." The Queen Elfie and the prince learned that Eregän did this to protect them from the king. When the king left the room, they helped Eregän heal her wound and promised to keep their friendship a secret. Days passed and Eregän became very skilled at everything in the castle. She helped cleaning the castle corridors, repairing and cleaning the royal clothes, but what she liked most was taking care of the prince and the queen. Sometimes she would play with the prince without the king's knowledge. One day in the castle garden, Eregän played with Prince Eregän. Meanwhile, Princess Eregän, having finished a flower crown she had made, approached them and said to Eregän, "Here, Eregän, I made this for you. I hope you like it." Eregän, grateful, placed the crown on her head. Eregän, delighted, exclaimed, "You look like a queen, Eregän. You look very strong and brave like a king, but even better, you are incredible, Eregän." They all share a moment of happiness. However, in the shadows, King Vladimir watched and listened to everything. In a furious voice, he thought, "I will not allow that monster to be my children's friend. I must get rid of her one way or another, and I think I know how." He continued on his way until he disappeared into the darkness. Next day, normality returns. Eregän, still wearing the flower crown Eregän had given her, was strolling through the garden with Queen Elfie and the prince. Suddenly, the tranquility was shattered when two knights burst in and one of them, without warning, struck Eregän, knocking her to the ground. Both Queen Elfie and the prince, dismayed and frightened, demand that the knights release her and give them an explanation for such attack. Suddenly, Captain Hades appeared and apologized and informed them, "A thousand apologies, your highnesses, for this disrespect, but we have received direct orders from the king to bring this Hapla before his majesty to be judged for her crime." Queen Elfie and the prince were stunned to hear this. Princess Eregän, incredulous, asked, "What crime are you talking about? Eregän will never harm anyone. Haven't you asked the wrong person?" However, Hades replied that Eregän had attacked the king by surprise during the night. Queen Elfie and the prince were not surprised by Captain Hades' words, but by the king's cruelty towards Eregän, such a noble and gentle being. King had to fabricate lies to blind Eregän from something she will never do, probably due to her appearance with dragon parts. Suddenly, Hades ordered the knights to bring her before the king. One of them, showing displeasure, brutally snatched Eregän's flower crown and threw it into the floor. Captain Hades informed Queen Elfie, "The king and the royal council will be waiting for you in a throne room." As he left, Hades intentionally stepped on Eregän's flower crown. The atmosphere in the throne room was tense. Light bathed the large space adorned with the royal banner, with the members of the court, nobles, servants, and a group of knights, including a warrior lion, waiting. The arrival of Eregän, changed like a criminal, heightened the tension. Everyone stared at her coldly. Some murmured, others remained silent. A deadly silence fell over the room with the entrance of the King Vladimir, ready to begin the trial. The whole fell silence. To one side, lions stood with the knights of Mordull, dressed in their black armor with red details. On the other side, Gabriel was with Hades' soldiers. Lion didn't believe the king's lie about Eregän. He and Gabriel knew she will never harm anyone, for she was noble and honest, and will never harm anyone unnecessarily. However, the kid always got what he wants, even if it means lying to deceive people, regardless of whatever that person had never done any harm. No one couldn't stop him or defend that person, not even the queen. Soon after, the queen and the prince, visibly worried, arrived in the throne room to witness the trial. Vladimir, with fury in his voice, asked Eregän, "Why do you attack me, Eregän? Is this how you thank the person who took you from the life for a slave? And this is why I receive as payment for my kindness and hospitality?" Vladimir showed his bandaged arm, which was proof of his word, and then began to remove the bandages, clearly revealing the claw marks of a beast. The people were shocked and began to murmur among themselves. Some believed it had been Eregän, while others did not, including Gabriel and Lion, because they knew that she will never attack anyone unless necessary. As Lion looked more closely at the king's wound, he realized that the claw marks on his arm were not Eregän's, but the claws of another Haplat. But he didn't have enough proof to prove Eregän's innocent. And even if he did, he couldn't show it because the king, the captain, and the commander will said otherwise. And they will listen without question, and even they knew the truth, their fear of the king will make them look the other way. He sat down and in a cold tone asked, "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Eregän, seeking to prove her innocence, said to the king, "I'm innocent, your highness. I couldn't have done that. I will never hurt anyone, and besides, I was in my cage that night. I can't possibly have attacked you, your majesty." Queen Elfie and the prince agreed with what she had just said, and even some of those present confirmed his veracity. However, Captain Hades in a gritty voice questioned her. "Perhaps you were able to open your cage last night. After all, you are very clever, aren't you?" She couldn't refute him because it was true, and the others thought the same. For although she was smarter than the other Haplat, she was ultimately a wild beast. Then Commander Myrtil, with a malicious smile, added, "I knew it. In the end, a wild beast will always be a wild beast." In the throne room, the atmosphere was chaotic. Some desired her execution, while others, including Queen Elfie and the prince, want to spare her. But King Vladimir had already made his decision. With a smile, he rose from his throne and declared, seriously and maliciously, "My kingdom! I have made my decision. This half-blood's life will be spared." Those who desired her punishment were frustrated, while others, like Gabriel, Elfie, and the prince, breathed a sigh of relief. Lion, however, felt something was wrong, a premonition that something terrible was about to happen. Suddenly, the king raised his hand for silence and concluded, "Yes, I will spare her life, but she will spend the rest of her pathetic existence in the arena as a gladiator." A deadly silence fell over the room. Then those who yearned for her punishment began to shout in approval, while the rest remained in silence, feeling a heaviness in the air as if a calamity had befallen them. Elfie and the prince didn't know what to say, they just watched. Gabriel and Lion clenched their fists, feeling hopeless as they watched Eregän's life flick away in the arena. Eregän, for her part, stood motionless. Her body froze, her mind blanked, and her surroundings darkened. Until she felt a tug. Two knights were lifting her to carrying her to her new home, the arena. What waits Eregän once she becomes a gladiator? Only fate will tell. To be continued.